Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. You guys have sent in some really wild stuff for this one.
Yeah.
We're diving headfirst into some pretty revolutionary ideas about the pyramids.
All right.
Now, we all know the textbook answers, tombs for pharaohs, all that. But could there be more to it? Like, way more.
Way more.
Your sources have got me thinking, could these massive structures actually be part of, like, some ancient energy system? And maybe, just maybe, there's a whole hidden world underneath them.
Oh, yeah, a whole hidden world.
So we've got articles talking about underground complexes, some of your own notes on how the pyramids could have been power generators, even a news report showing how divided the experts are on all this.
A lot to unpack.
Our mission today, to break it all down, the evidence, the theories, and see if we can shed some light on this potential hidden dimension and whether the pyramids had an energetic function.
I like it.
And one thing's for sure, your sources don't hold back. They lay out some pretty contrasting views.
It can be good.
Okay, so let's start with this hidden underground network. One of the news articles you sent focuses on some Italian researchers, led by a Professor Corrado Malanga from the University of Pisa.
Ah, yeah, I remember that one.
They claim to have found something big using radar, like a whole network of tunnels and chambers under the pyramids.
Wow.
They're talking massive vertical shafts, spiral staircases.
Spiral staircases.
Yeah, spiral staircases. Like, imagine that. And what look like channels, almost like pipelines for water.
That's pretty wild.
Now, here's the kicker. They say these structures go down over 2,000 feet. That's like 600 meters.
That is deep.
So it's not just some little basement, you know? This is massive and complex, which makes you think, what was it really for?
Makes you think, yeah.
And get this, they even suggest this could be where the legendary Hall of Records is.
No way, the Hall of Records.
The one with all the ancient Egyptian secrets, supposedly.
I mean, that would be incredible.
But hold on, because not everyone's buying it.
Right.
The same news report quotes another expert, Professor Lawrence Conyers, who's a radar specialist.
What's his take?
He calls the Italian team's claims a huge exaggeration.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's basically saying there's no way satellite radar, which is kind of like sonar, but for land can see that deep and give you a clear picture.
I can see that being an issue. Radar in depth.
So he's not reeling out that there might be something under there,
Okay.
but a whole city? Doubtful.
So what does he think is down there then?
He thinks maybe some smaller structures could exist, and he even uses the Mayan pyramids as an example.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of those were built over caves, you know, that were used for ceremonies and stuff.
Right, right.
So maybe the Egyptians did something similar on a smaller scale.
Huh, that makes sense.
Now, if you want a really strong opinion, the article quotes Dr. Zahi Hawass.
Oh, Dr. Hawass, yeah, I know him.
He's a very well-known Egyptian archaeologist, and he just straight up says the Italian research is completely wrong.
Wow, he doesn't mince words.
No, he doesn't. He says there's zero scientific basis for it.
That's a pretty strong statement.
And there's another point to consider here.
What's that?
Professor Malanga's findings, they haven't been published in a peer-reviewed journal yet.
Ah, that's important.
That means other experts haven't had a chance to check their work and see if it holds up.
Peer review is a big deal in science. It's how you know if the research is legit.
Exactly.
So, hidden city. Maybe, maybe not. We need more evidence before we jump to conclusions.
Agreed. All right, let's switch gears now and talk about your pasted text notes, where you explore the pyramids as potential energy devices.
I'm intrigued by this.
You started by imagining what it would be like to have these underground chambers, and then you wondered, how could they have been powered?
Yeah, it's a natural question.
Like, if people were actually living down there or using the spaces for rituals, how did they keep the lights on, so to speak?
Right, right. How did they make it work?
That's where you started thinking about the pyramid itself and whether its shape and design could have something to do with energy.
Fascinating.
Okay, so first up, you mentioned resonant chambers.
Resonant chambers, yes.
You're thinking certain rooms underground might have been built to amplify and focus energy.
Yeah.
And maybe they even use special materials like quartz or metals to enhance those effects.
It's like building a giant instrument.
Yeah, a giant instrument tuned to specific energy frequencies.
Exactly.
Then you brought up telluric current pathways.
Ah, telluric currents, the Earth's natural electrical flows.
Right. You suggested that the tunnels and shafts within the pyramid could be aligned to tap into those currents.
Like a giant battery.
Yeah, using the Earth itself as a power source.
Clever, if they could pull it off.
And then there's the piezoelectric stonework idea.
Piezoelectric. Remind me, what's that again?
You know how some materials, like quartz, create an electrical charge when you squeeze them?
Oh, right, right.
So if the underground chambers were built with stone that had a lot of quartz, even tiny vibrations from the earth or people moving around could generate electricity.
So the pyramid's weight, the pressure, could be a source of power.
Exactly. It's constantly generating a little bit of energy. Then there are the metallic grids or coils.
Oh, yeah, those were interesting.
You were picturing those spiral columns we talked about earlier, but imagine them made of metal.
A metal framework deep underground.
Right, and if those metals were conductive, they could create a pathway for energy to flow through the structure.
Like wiring in a circuit.
And lastly, you factored in water.
Water, how does that fit in?
Well, water, especially if it has minerals in it, is a great conductor of electricity.
Oh, right, like salt water.
And we know a lot of ancient sites were built near water sources, so what if the Egyptians incorporated water into the pyramid's design to help move energy around?
So it's all connected, the earth, the water, the structure. It's a system.
Yeah, a system. And now the big question becomes, if this was all about energy, what was it used for?
Exactly. Was it for, like, everyday living or something more esoteric?
You brought up two possibilities. One, that these underground spaces were living areas, maybe for like an elite group or priests, and this energy system provided them with some kind of protection or amplified beneficial frequencies.
A kind of energy shield?
Yeah, like a bubble of good vibes, or maybe even a way to improve their health or something.
Or it could have been all about ritual.
Right, your second idea. Maybe they weren't living there full time, but using these spaces for ceremonies, and the energy helped them achieve altered states of consciousness.
Maybe for spiritual experiences, healing, or who knows what else.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think that the pyramid wasn't just a static monument, but a dynamic, energetic environment.
It really changes your perspective.
Okay, now here's the thing. We've got all these theories, but there's actual evidence of weird energy stuff happening around the pyramids.
Really? Tell me more.
Multiple studies have shown electromagnetic anomalies, especially near the Great Pyramid.
Like what?
Well, for one, they've measured unusual electromagnetic activity all over the pyramid, but the strongest readings are near the top, where the capstone is missing.
The capstone?
Yeah, that pointy top part that's not there anymore. It's almost like that missing piece is messing with the energy flow somehow. Then there's the whole telluric currents and resonance thing.
Oh, right. You mentioned those earlier.
So telluric currents, we know those are flowing through the earth, but some research suggests the pyramids are actually interacting with them.
Like drawing energy from them.
Potentially. And get this, there's also the Schumann resonance.
Schumann resonance. That's what, the Earth's natural electromagnetic frequency?
Yep, and some researchers think the pyramids are resonating with that frequency, like they're tuned to the planet.
Wow, that's kind of trippy.
And then remember piezoelectric effects. Those come into play here too.
Right, the squeezing creates energy thing.
So the pyramids are huge and heavy, putting a lot of pressure on the stone, and that stone is mostly limestone, which contains quartz.
Right, right.
So you've got this constant pressure, plus vibrations from the earth, maybe even changes in temperature, and all that could be generating a subtle electric field within the pyramid itself.
So it's like the pyramid has its own energy just from existing.
And then there's one more thing, ionization and air conductivity.
Ionization, what does that mean?
It means the air near the pyramids has more electrically charged particles than the air further away.
So the air is different around the pyramids?
Yeah, and that means it can conduct electricity better.
So we're talking a measurable effect.
Right, something's definitely going on.
Okay, you also mentioned an image in your notes that really caught your attention.
Oh yeah, the one with a pyramid, the deep spiral columns and the water.
Yeah. What about that one?
That image, for me, really illustrates how they could have been harnessing energy.
How so?
You've got these spiral columns reaching deep into the earth, and they look a lot like Tesla coils, or things designed to collect telluric currents.
Tesla.
Yeah, like Tesla was onto something, maybe tapping into this ancient knowledge. So these columns reaching down into the earth could be pulling up energy from those geoelectric currents.
And the spiral shape.
That could be key to efficiently capturing and channeling the energy.
Interesting. Now, what about the water in the picture? It showed some sort of water-like layer at the bottom.
Right, and that's crucial because water, especially with minerals in it, is a fantastic conductor.
So it's boosting the energy flow.
Exactly. It could be acting like a conduit, allowing the energy to move easily between the columns and the surrounding earth.
I see. And what about the capstone at the top?
Ah, the capstone, the missing piece. In the image, it was either a golden sphere or a small pyramid.
Gold. Why gold?
Gold is an amazing conductor of electricity. Plus, it doesn't corrode easily.
So it would last a long time.
Exactly. So this golden capstone, sitting at the very top, could be where all that energy from below gets collected. Or maybe it's where it gets released.
Like a giant antenna.
Yeah, either amplifying the energy or sending it out, maybe even wirelessly, like Tesla was trying to do.
That's pretty wild.
And that leads to the big question. Was this a power source for the whole area?
A power station in ancient Egypt?
Maybe, but there are other possibilities too. Like, what if it was all about consciousness?
Consciousness.
Yeah, some theories suggest the pyramids weren't about electricity in the way we think of it, but more about manipulating subtle energy fields that could affect our minds and bodies.
So like a giant consciousness amplifier.
Maybe. Or a tool for healing or inducing spiritual experiences.
I mean, we're already measuring strange energy stuff around them, so who knows?
And one of your notes really hit on something important. You questioned why they'd go through all the trouble of building these massive structures using metal, even gold, if it was just about burying someone.
Yeah, it's a good question.
The scale of it, the materials, it seems like overkill for a tomb, don't you think?
Definitely makes you wonder.
It feels like there's a bigger story here.
Okay, so let's talk about the seismic energy capture hypothesis you mentioned.
All right, so imagine those deep metal columns acting like a giant grounding rod, connecting the pyramid to the Earth's electrical currents.
A massive grounding system.
And now imagine the pyramid is built in a place with a lot of seismic activity, even small earthquakes.
Okay, so the ground is shaking a bit.
Right, and that shaking could be putting pressure on the pyramid stones, which, remember, contain quartz.
And that pressure generates a charge because of the piezoelectric effect.
Exactly, so the pyramid's actually harvesting energy from the Earth's movements.
And that energy flows down those metal columns.
Into the ground, but also potentially up to the capstone, which, if it's gold, could then radiate that energy outwards.
So it's taking energy from the ground, focusing it, and then releasing it.
And who knows, maybe that released energy had some effect on the people nearby, their energy fields, even their health.
Like a bioenergetic effect.
And remember those metal spirals? You had an idea about those too.
Oh yeah, I was thinking they could be acting like waveguides.
Waveguides.
Yeah, like channels for directing specific frequencies of energy.
So like fiber optic cables for light, but for a different kind of energy.
Exactly. And those underground chambers, maybe they're designed to resonate at certain frequencies, amplifying them.
So it's not just random energy, it's controlled and directed.
Right. It's a system with a purpose.
So if we put it all together, what are we looking at?
Well, it seems like the pyramids could be capable of pulling in energy from the Earth, amplifying it, and then either using it internally or sending it out.
Maybe as a power source, maybe for healing, maybe for consciousness. Who knows?
It's pretty clear, though, that they weren't just tombs.
Definitely not just tombs. And this brings us back to your idea about restoring the capstone.
The missing piece of the puzzle.
You propose putting a negatively charged material, like gold, back on top. Why is that so important?
Well, if all these theories are right, and the pyramid is designed to work as an energy system, then putting the capstone back should make a difference.
Like we should be able to measure a change in the energy fields around the pyramid.
Exactly. It would be like turning the system back on and seeing what happens.
It's the ultimate experiment. So, to wrap things up, we've gone deep on some pretty wild claims about a hidden city under the pyramids.
Some compelling evidence, some healthy skepticism.
And we've explored the possibility that the pyramids themselves were part of a sophisticated ancient energy system, maybe harnessing the power of the Earth itself.
It's a lot to take in, but it really makes you think.
And the listeners' questions about life underground and the pyramid's potential energy really pushed us to consider some out-there ideas.
They did, and those questions are what make this whole exploration so fascinating.
Exactly. So here's a final thought for everyone listening. If even a fraction of what we've talked about is true, it means we might need to rethink some of our most basic assumptions about ancient civilizations.
About what they knew, what they could do.
Think about it. What if the ancients had technologies and knowledge that we're only just starting to rediscover? What if our understanding of history is completely wrong? It's a pretty amazing thing to consider, and that's what makes these deep dives so much fun. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.